for everyone.
All right, so this particular corner, right where CVS is located, it doesn't really seem like much of a street, but it has a long history here in downtown. In the 1880s, this was the edge of the business district, as in all the business district was there between the railroad and the courthouse. And around this and past this were mostly dwellings. On this map, which I'll pass around when I'm done, all of the yellow DWG are dwellings. So this particular spot had the churches because it was between the business district and the housing. And this is where the First Baptist Church of Fresno was created. And right next to it, on what would become Van Ness, it's not on this map, was the First Presbyterian Church. So this was like the church district. The First Baptist Church of Fresno was started by 7 charter members in 1882, and by 1884 they had 74 members, and decided to build a church on this location. And in a second I have some pictures, but the most interesting part about the First Baptist Church is the pastor's wife, the first pastor's wife, Mrs. Potter, because she started the Chinese First Baptist Mission. So this is the Chinese First Baptist Mission, and they bought land and set up a mission in Chinatown. And so this was a big part of their agenda. And we have a couple of pictures here. So it's a really interesting part of Chinatown and kind of all of local Fresno history. This was the first edifice, and it burned down. And we're going to talk about all the fires, lots of fires, and then the fire department in a bit. So it burned down about 11 years later, and then it had the second edifice that burned down about 2 years later.
All buildings burned down during this time.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And then they moved because the business district was expanding and the housing was moving that direction. They moved, so when they decided to build their third edifice, which also had to burn down and be reconstructed, they built on Merced and N Streets. So until the 50s, they had this beautiful brick church on Merced and N Streets. And so they have a really long history, and of course they've moved elsewhere since then, but it's a really interesting story. After the church, and I'm like, we can pass those along. After the church, as the business district expanded, this is about the 1930s. Yeah, about the 1930s. It was the Ruth Brothers store right here on the corner. Ruth Brothers has a long history, local company, and then after that, by the time the mall was being built, Montgomery Ward was established on this corner. So
there were a lot of different businesses that went
layers
on. Yeah,
is what we're talking about here.
You can see again here the Ruth Brothers, and again for those in the back, any of you want to see these, after we're done, we of course will be happy to show you a little bit further. But this is what it looked like, and then this is the ad for Montgomery Ward. And that's again right where we're standing. This is all these changes, and this is just very early in our history. So there was a lot of movement going around in the area with in terms of change during that time. So you're all through? Okay. Now if we could look across the street here,
if anybody wants to see these, just raise your hand.
we have. This is on the other side. So we had different businesses. It was all Dr. Scholl. It said this is great again during the 1960s. It was Bides Hardware, all different types of businesses. So again, this is all along this block here, and for some reason, this particular block was the one that was really torn down. These businesses don't exist. The most prominent building during the time of the mall was Cooper's department store. Now this is the third location for Cooper's department store, and where it was is right where that building is, where the Fresno Housing Authority. This was Cooper's, and so let me tell you a little background of Cooper's. Get your little picture there. And an interesting story I want to ask, is anybody, a lot of you are young, I can see, but has shopped in Cooper's or remember Cooper's? Do you remember anything about the store, like the interior or anything like that? No. No? It was just a department store probably at the time.
Didn't it have a revolving door?
I don't know about that.
That's the only thing I can remember.
Yeah. Well, what had happened, it opened in 1915, way at the other end of the mall, and that was at 915 J Street. So basically where Chick Chansey is today, in that area, that's where her first store was. And it was the Cooper family operated it, but then her husband died, so Ann Day Cooper continued to operate it as a department store. And so she expanded the store and moved it to the Bricks building, which we'll be coming up to soon in a moment here, in the ground floor, the basement, and the mezzanine. And so at that time it was 28 departments and 145 employees. So we're talking about 1922 during this time. And it was declared one of the most beautiful and modern in the state. This is the one that when they were in the Bricks building at the time. And according to my notes here, in the Bricks building they had massive white pillars and mahogany banisters at the counters, and there was a lunchroom and a large soda fountain, and they enlarged it again in 1928. And then finally in 1952, then it was moved here to Fulton and Merced. And it said it had 3 floors of merchandise with 45 departments. So, I mean, this is a woman operating this, which is unusual, obviously, for this time. This wonderful department store, very successful at the time. Her sons, Tom and John, shared in the store management. And it was, though, when they were no longer able to do that, it was sold to Gottschalk's in 1960. And just a little background of Anne, believe it or not, she was a seaman first class in the Coast Guard Reserve during World War II. Cool. And she served with American Red Cross Motor Corporation. In the 1920s, she served as a director of the First Community Chest here in town and of the First Merchants Association. And she was included in the Women of the West in 1928. And she died here in, I don't know if it was in Fresno, but she died in 1965. But again, that's where that building was, that, again, Cooper's. So this was the third and final area, really, for this department store. Now this is what we have today. So that's the story of Cooper's.
All right.
Do you have anything, or keep on going? All right, so we're going to head this way.